Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of You Are More. I want to thank everyone who listened to my first episode and thank Jen and Michael again, to those that have left reviews or rated. Thank you so much. Our next guest for episode 2 has one of the most inspiring and impressive stories I have ever heard. Not only is she author, speaker, gold medalist, ESPN host, and Dancing with the Stars contestant, Victoria. When Victoria was 11, she was diagnosed with 2 rare neurological disorders. The doctors were skeptical that she would live. She spent the next 4 years locked in her own body. She could hear everything that was going on, and eventually, through a blink, people would realize that she was still there. She learned how to eventually not only talk again, move her arms, but eventually walk again too. She's the professional one out of all of us.
I was doing a thing today where they were all like, "Oh, you're the professional," and then literally I'm the one who messed up today. And then I literally looked and I was like, "Yup, still think I'm the professional."
I love it. It humbles you.
Totally does, but also too, I'm a human being.
No, that makes total sense. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit of your story?
Do you want like the Cliff Notes version? How much time do we have?
You can say as much as you want.
Sure. Yeah,
I love to hear it all.
I love to hear it all. Okay, so yeah, I've had an interesting journey to get to here. Actually, by most medical standards, shouldn't even be here. So when I was 11, I got these two really rare neurological conditions. So my brain and spinal cord were essentially attacked by myself, by my body. These 2 neuro conditions called transverse myelitis and acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. So I went from being this completely healthy 11-year-old to being unresponsive and in a vegetative state within 3 months. So doctors essentially told my parents I wasn't going to make it, and then if I did make it, the Victoria they once knew was never coming back. So they should either plan a funeral or look up facilities and put me away and move on with their life, because I was never going to become a functioning member of society. I was never going to talk again. I was never going to walk again. Nothing. And thankfully, I come from a very feisty family that refused to give up on their child. So my parents, against all medical advice, said, "All right, well, we're not giving up on our child." And so when things got stable-ish, they set up a hospital room in our living room. And so for 4 years, my parents took care of me, and I was in and out of the hospital. But what they didn't realize is I was locked in. So I was completely aware of my surroundings and knew what was going on. I just couldn't move. I couldn't let anyone know. So in that time, I kind of wrote an obituary, but I focused more so on this like bucket list of what I was going to do if I came out of it. And in that time, there was real moments where my family didn't think I was going to make it, but they were just convinced that whatever time they had left with me, they were going to make the most of it. And so my mom was like, every day was a gift, and we were just going to be grateful to God and be grateful for the time we did have with you. And all 3 of my brothers felt the very same way too. And then 4 years into it, I regained the ability to blink, and my family just went to the ends of the earth to just try to help me and empower me to give me the best chance at surviving. And then, we got this miracle through blinking that I have these giant eyeballs, and that allowed me to be able to let my family know that I was in there. And then that was kind of the small, blink of hope, if you will, that allowed me to let my family know, hey, I'm still here. And that was the beginning of the fight back, which was not an easy fight back, but I learned after that how to talk. I learned how to, sit up. I learned how to navigate the world in a wheelchair, and just slowly started making my way back. That was in 2010. So the world had shifted a little bit from 2006 to 2010. And then from there, I just kind of started figuring it out. I went back to school in a wheelchair after missing, 4.5 years of school. And, high schoolers are not known for their empathy. So it was a very interesting ordeal coming back as the coma kid. So sports became kind of my outlet to be able to, have a safe space, because I didn't find that at school. And I had a lot of catching up to do. So I'm one of triplets. So I was really trying to graduate on time with my brothers, so I really focused on that. And then sports, I grew up playing hockey, so I obviously couldn't skate at the time, so I was thrown in a sled and started playing sled hockey. And then it was my hockey coach that was like, hey, you should keep up with this whole swimming thing too. I heard you're pretty good at it as well. And so I was just kind of, I was playing sports and going to school and just trying to find my way in a world that I'd missed out on for quite some time. And I didn't want to be on the sidelines anymore. And with that, 2 years later, I found myself not on the sidelines, competing for the USA team and swimming and doing pretty well in London and really achieving this lifelong dream of not only representing my country, but being able to win a gold medal and a couple silvers, but be able to just see my family cry tears of not sadness and tears of joy, and all of us as a family realize, hey, we are gonna be okay. And that was 2 years after that, and then that opened up a lot of doors. That also opened up the door of my story that I was not expecting to be revealed at that time. I was only 17, so I wasn't ready to be this inspiration to people. I was just still trying to get through high school. And so with that, I didn't really know how to navigate that, but I was just still trekking along and trying to figure it out, and had these plans. I was going to go be a pediatric neurologist, and ended up, going on these different speaking and media tours. And then that brought me down to this place called ESPN. And from there, I was asked if I had, thought of a career in broadcasting, to which I kindly declined and said, no, I'm actually planning to go be a doctor. And then I watched a live taping of SportsCenter and had this light bulb moment. And then after that was like, And so I started, job shadowing. Yeah, I was like, this seems pretty cool. But I grew up watching it. I grew up watching it. I just never thought this was something I could do. And some really incredibly kind anchors, gave me a chance to job shadow and just learn the business. And I was still getting all my gen eds done online. So I was still on my path to go be a neurologist. But I was like, well, in the meantime, I'd love to learn, and I love telling stories. And I'd probably prefer to tell someone else's story than my own. I'm not the biggest fan of telling my own story. And there's some really cool people that have really amazing stories. And honestly, there was just I didn't think I stood a chance, to be honest. And I just kind of kept knocking on doors and meeting really cool individuals. And then it was these two really amazing producers who just one day I was going into a meeting and saying hello, and they invited me to be a reporter, and we were covering the Special Olympic World Games. And so there's going to be a lot of really cool storytelling, and that was essentially my blink moment there, where I really had this opportunity of a lifetime. And so I deferred from going away to school for another year, and then 9 years later I'm still there, and I've gotten to tell stories that I couldn't even have dreamed of before that, and continue to have a career that I can't even imagine. And my whole first year at ESPN was also when I started kind of this journey of learning or attempting to learn to walk again. And I was told I would never walk again. And I was okay with that, because I also was told, I wouldn't survive. So I was perfectly fine with my pimped out wheelchairs. I really was. But my family hadn't forgotten this promise they made me, which when I came home from my first day of school, I was bullied so badly. I couldn't even contain my tears for the car. It was to a point where I was shaking so badly with how badly I was treated that first day, because my family didn't see me any differently. My friends didn't see me any differently. And so it was hard for me to see myself any differently. And then I step out into the world and I go into school, and I was very much different. Mm-hmm. And so when I came home, I felt so broken, and here I'd survived all these things, and then high school was the thing that was going to break me. And my parents promised me, and they're like, we're going to work on helping you get back everything that was taken away from you, and we'll leave no stone unturned. And so in the midst of all that, we had gone out to California and discovered activity-based therapy, which is just different neuromuscular type training for any type of neuro and paralysis causing conditions. But there's really nothing like that on the East Coast at the time. And so we had gone out there and realized, this is groundbreaking and amazing, but we can't live out here full time. We live on the East Coast. And so my mom actually had called my dad, and she had this epiphany. God just was like, hey, da 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 da. And and I remember the moment too, and I look at her and I'm like, you just found your calling. And she had been a stay-at-home mom, but she had been really ready and searching for her next thing, her next chapter. And so she called my dad and she was like, hey, how's it going? And like the kind of like, you're about to drop something, but you're like making the small talk. Yeah. Not a small talk kind of gal. Like just let it, rip off the Band-Aid. And that's how my dad is. He's like, what's up? And so she's like, remember how we talked about me, going back to work and finding my thing now that, Victoria's off and running, the boys are up, off to school and everyone's doing well. And my dad's like, yeah. And she's like, and do you remember when that neurologist said, we shouldn't mortgage the house chasing down this impossible dream that, Victoria could regain mobility or even walk again? And my dad's like, yeah. She's like, so I have this idea. She's like, what if we open our own type of neuro recovery center on the East Coast? And she's like, but not just for Victoria. She's like, for other families like ours who've been told that their loved one's a lost cause. She's like, because there's no such thing as a lost cause. I mean, if there is, let me be the poster child. And she's like, we could provide hope. And she's like, and we could create a healing space, not just for our daughter, but just for others. And she's like, and I've done the numbers and I've really prayed on it. And she goes, we can do it if we mortgage the house. And then she's quiet. My dad's quiet. And then she gets feisty. And Mama Arlen gets feisty. And she literally goes, and if you say no, I'll divorce you and take half. Love you, bye. And hangs up the phone. And literally, and I'm just like, and we're about to fly. Like we're about to fly across the country. And I just go, like, are we about to break up our family? Like, I'm not playing a part of this. And she looks at me and she goes, and she is a sassy British woman. And she just looks at me like, I'm not a part of this. And then my dad's like calling back. And he's like, what is going on? And needless to say, like my parents have been married almost 40 years. They did not get divorced, but almost a year later, they opened up Project Walk Boston. And it was it was groundbreaking what they did. And that was where I learned, where it was just like absolute miracles started occurring there, and families came from all over, and it has now become a worldwide leader for neuro recovery. Like we have people that are getting better from conditions that were, death sentences for people. And my mom will always text me because of a little girl that suffered immeasurable pain, that this individual hugged their spouse. This little girl is now, running around with her brothers and all these different things. And that's where I learned how to walk. And almost 10 years to the day of becoming paralyzed. And so it was just this like full circle moment, and that was all in the middle of like my first year at ESPN. So it was kind of this crazy thing where I'm like, I start there in a chair, then I'm on crutches, but then I'm still trying to navigate, and it's very hard. I talk with my hands, so like my whole first year at ESPN, I'm like in a chair, but then like I was always in like a director's chair when I would do it, and then as I'd be doing like reports, we'd have like production assistants like underneath like the shot, like holding their hands up because I'd be talking and just slowly leaning out of the shot. So there's like certain things where you just see people and you just see me going like this. And so and even to this day, it was like last week we were doing something and I had these high heels and like the legs were just like not happening today. And I just literally, we were live and we were going, and I just knew, I was like, I'm about to fall. Like it is about to go down. And my director was like, hold on, 20 more seconds. Like they knew it was coming, and I was like, like it was going. And so it's like those, and I'm like 9 years later and we still have it. And I was this close to absolutely just taking a tumble. And I'm like, but I did it to myself because they were literally just
You're like, this was self-inflicted.
That was 6-inch like stiletto inflicted. Or like I had these boots. And my director's like in my ear and she's like, cute boots, not a cute walk. I was like, these boots are made for talking, not walking. Hands down. Like it's the shuffle and then you stand and you like sit in there. But yeah, I mean there's so many different pieces of my story, but this is your talking time. But that's a bit of me in a nutshell. And then the big one that that kind of happened after the walking piece was about a year later, or a year and a half after I learned how to walk, I said yes to a dancing show, which traumatized my family because I called my mom and I was like, hey, and they're like, hey, my mom goes, what? And I was like, so
what did you do?
I got asked to do Dancing with Stars wants me to do the show, and my mom's like, what? And I was like, yeah. So I said yes, and she's like, you have been walking a year without any assistance. Do you realize that you have to dance now? I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. First day, we were not fine, Emily. Like I got twirled and Victoria twirled and tumbled. So, yeah, I've just been, for me, it's just like, you know what? We're just going to roll with it. So, yeah, that's kind of, those are the big pieces that,
Okay.
of the main part of the journey. And then, here we are. Yeah,
I
I'll
mean,
let you
it's
continue.
literally one of the most impressive and inspiring stories I think I've ever heard.
You were very kind.
It's just telling the truth. But going back to when you're talking about blinking for the first time, do you remember that day? Like, do you remember your family's reaction and you're like, oh my goodness, they can tell now?
Yes. I remember because I would have sleep cycles. And I remember my biggest thing was I didn't know if I was going to wake up. So I would always kind of be unsure. And I had to kind of let that go that, okay, this might be it. And at a certain point, and at this point in particular, I was really tired. So I was kind of like, hey, I'm good if we don't, because I'm just tired and my body's broken down and I don't have a lot left in me. But I really, I was kind of, and I feel like you get to your breaking point before your breakthrough. Mm-hmm. And I think that was where I was at. And I remember I made this promise with God, and I was like, hey, like, my faith has really been such a grounding thing for me. And I was like, hey, God, I don't know if you can hear me, but no one else can hear me. But I can't do this anymore. And I think we've all had those moments too, where you just are at a breaking point. And I was like, I can't even scratch my nose. Like, it doesn't get any lower than this. Like I said, all I can do is really breathe. And even that is not really fully controlled by myself. And I was like, so I really want to live, but I can't live like this. And so I made this promise, and I was like, if you give me back my life, if you give me back, but not just my life in this bed, but like really give me back my life, like I'll use my voice to change the world. I'll go out and help people. I'll make the most of every single moment. And I'll be a testimony of what you can do. But I can't do that from this hospital bed. So I need something. I need something to get me out of here or just start that process. And I wasn't looking to be, essentially, the choir angels and I just jump out of bed. Like I was realistic in that. I was like, but I just needed something. I needed something to go in my way. And because I think the reality was hitting in me. Like I had been focusing on gratitude. I'd been focusing on the good, but the reality was hitting me that like, I don't know how many days I have left of this. Mm-hmm. And so I remember waking up, and I remember I like could look over, and I was like, this is new. And I like didn't have control of my eyes. So I remember I could like I could look out the window, and then I could look to the wall, and I could look upstairs. And so I was kind of like really excited. I was like, whoa, this is fun. Like you wouldn't believe the excitement level of just moving your eyeballs to not be staring at random things. And then I was like, I can open them up. And like, I was called Frankenstein as a baby because I had a big dome and a little body. And so like my mom would always say to me, you always had these giant eyeballs. And I could always tell from the time you were a baby what you were thinking just by looking in your eyes. And I kept searching for you when you were sick. And I couldn't tell. I kept searching and searching and searching. And so I was waiting for her to walk in. And so she comes walking in, and I'm like staring at her like this. I was literally giving a talk the other day, and I just looked at everyone like this, just like staring at them. So I'm like, someone's going to notice at some point if someone is literally giving you just the like biggest eyeballs on the face of the planet. So I'm staring at her, and I'm following her throughout the room. And like, she's not paying attention. And I'm like, woman, look at me. I like don't know how long this window is going to be. Yeah. So I am like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Like I was in this. I was like, I don't know how long we have here. So I really need you to look. And so she looks at me, and our eyes meet. And I look at her, and she looks at me. And then she kind of moves, and she can see I'm tracking her, but she knows I'm focusing on her. Mm-hmm. And that's also one of the reasons why my book's called Locked In. Because not only was I locked in, but I locked in on like a target. And she was my target I was locking in on. So I'm locked in on her. And so she walks up to me, and she's like just looking at me, and I'm looking at her. And she knows I see her. Mm-hmm. And she can see me, but she paused. And I asked her later on why she paused. And I was like, you were about to ask me a question. And you paused. And she was like, I was scared. And I was like, what were you afraid of? And she's like, for all these years, I kept believing you were in there. And then I was really afraid that all that hope, because it's scary to have hope.
Yeah.
It's scary to hold on for so long only for that hope to be like diminished, especially when every doctor and nurse is basically giving you every medical reason why you should not have hope. And that faith and fear, they can't live in the same sentence. So whatever you're leaning towards, the other's going to get negated out. So she got afraid. And so I said, so your faith muscle just got knocked out. Like Mr. Faith went boop. And so she's like, and then I just said, she's like, she's like, I just had to believe. I had to believe. And so she asked me if you can hear me blink twice. And I just kept blinking like crazy. And then she like did, the mom thing when they go, wow! Like she just like literally like threw her hands in the air. And then she started like, she burst into tears. And like, I still say to this day, I was like, I've done a lot of cool things. I was like, that was undoubtedly the single most powerful moment I've ever shared with anyone, but also like one of my greatest accomplishments, because she started asking me questions. I'm answering them. And she's like, you've been in here this whole time, haven't you? And I just blinked twice. And she was like, I knew it. She goes, I knew it. And then no one, like, all these doctors are coming in and they're like, this is a fluke. This is not. And they're trying to basically validate what they've been saying this whole time. And my mom's like, I don't care what you're saying. Like, she is like, and my mom's like, have you heard everything they've said? And I'm just like exactly. And I'm like,
we're going to talk. When I can talk, we're going to have a serious conversation.
Yes. And it was like one of those things where I'm like, they better hope to Jesus that I don't start actually talking. And and then she like called my dad and my whole family. And then that was kind of the start of me coming out. But yeah, that was the beginning for sure.
When you were talking, it reminds me in my book that I write about it, like God doesn't necessarily take your broken pieces and puts them back together. Sometimes he just adds in new ones and like he rebuilds you during that process. And you have done such an incredible job of taking what I don't know if it's appropriate to call them burdens, but what has happened to you and your talents, and it's like totally become your calling. Like what you promised that you were going to change the world and use your voice and speak other people, you have done like such an incredible job doing that. You really have.
Thank you. I'm trying, so thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot coming from you, so thank you.
You have done amazing. Was there a certain it actually makes me think, I'm gonna be honest, when you're talking about how you can like hear things, I remember when Colby was dying, they said he can still hear you. So we had he never got to hear them because he passed away before, but we had his like teammates send in videos, or like me talking on the FaceTime. So it brings me like some comfort knowing that you could hear and that Colby could hear too. But was there a song or a verse or something that like kept you going and still keeps you going? They can be different, but
there's several. Oh gosh. The song Oceans by Hillsong is my jam. But that is like a song I think that keeps me going on the regular. Mm-hmm. But the first verse is forgive them for they know not what they do. That one was really powerful for me. It was the first thing I wrote out when I was writing my book, because the doctors misdiagnosed me, which is why I ended up in the vegetative state, because it could have all been prevented with steroids. So they told my parents initially I was doing it for attention. So they missed this really crucial 2-week window where my foot was, where I started having just brief, small neurological shutdown. And that was really hard because I found this out a lot later, that all of this could have been prevented. And I'm still 18 years later have like after effects, and will have forever like after effects of like the doctors making arrogant mistakes out of their own arrogance, that like now the medical teams I work with, the conversations, I do a lot of pediatric medical advocacy work, and I've sat with like top doctors, and first thing they'll say to me is, I'm so sorry you were so mistreated. So that verse is a big one, because I think in the world, like when people mistreat you and people go out and do that, that's such a poignant one because it is like they don't know. And I think when I learned that one and the power of forgiveness, it changed my thought process entirely because I was like, if that hadn't have happened, I never would have gone on this journey. And if I hadn't gone on this journey, I wouldn't be where I am today. And if I hadn't been where I am today, there wouldn't be the awareness there is about these conditions. There wouldn't, like, thank God I went through it because now, as crappy as it was then, people are getting diagnosed quicker. There are better treatments. Like, there is more awareness. And my family, like, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so it's like, had we just gotten the quick treatment, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And my mom and I have always said, we wouldn't choose what we went through, but we wouldn't change it. And so that was a big one too. And then I really love Proverbs 3:5-6 too. And so, I there's so many. I could go, I could go on and on. But there's just so many, I think, that it depends on different parts of my journey. But I remember I used to always tell myself in the midst of all of it, I remember I would just say, your story doesn't end in defeat. And I would just say that over and over and over and over again when I was stuck in my vegetative state. I would just be like, my story's not going to end in defeat. So I'm not going to write this. So I'm not going to harper on this obituary. I'm going to focus on like what am I grateful for? And I have a family that loves me. The sun is shining. I have fuzzy socks. Did my mom give me bangs in my vegetative state? Yes. Is that traumatic in of itself? Are we gonna talk about it? Probably not. But, like, let's be honest, Emily. Like,
was that the first thing you said to her? I feel like I'd be like,
one of the first things I said to her was, you gave me bangs. And she looked at me and was like, well, we were cutting your hair. And I was like, I remember laying there and just watching the scissors. Emily, there has been some traumatic crap that I witnessed. And up there is the bangs.
So no bangs ever in your life.
I did get them over the summer. And just give them a try, but I think it was a rebellious self to be like, I'm the captain now.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna give this a try. I tried it, didn't love it. I did it for a bit, but I have this amazing therapist, and I walked in with the bangs, and she goes, all right, so we're gonna talk about this for a minute. She goes, because people get bangs for two reasons: either like they're spiraling, or they just want to change up. So what is it? And I was like,
oh, so true. I feel like bangs or like the hair chop is like one or the other.
Or you get extensions. You get really long extensions. Or you go blonde, or you go brunette, like one or the other. Like I went blonde. I'm naturally brunette. During COVID, I went so blonde. Like I was blonder than Barbie. Like blonder than Barbie, and I was like, those who knew me were like, oh, she's spiraling, like she is spiraling. And then when I got bangs, like no one thought I was spiraling, but there was a few text messages where they were like, are you mad at someone? And I was like, no, I'm actually not. Like, I was just like giving it a whirl and like seeing
wellness check on the bangs.
Yeah, we did a wellness check. I actually did like put something out on Instagram and be like, I'm actually okay. Like, I wanted to give it a try, and then I told like the funny story how my mom gave me bangs, and this was kind of me like giving that a whirl in the honor of the anniversary of the bangs like happening. I think it was like 17 years ago or whatever, 16 years ago. But but it was those things where it was like, I don't even know, we got so off tangent, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so it's like with those, it was like just focusing on like the good, and I think that was such a saving grace for me too, of like, I gotta focus on the good too.
That's amazing.
Even if it's big.
When you were talking, I actually posted it on Instagram the other day, and I was shocked on the answers. If people would go back and tell their younger self or warn their younger self, and I was shocked on, it was like 51 and 49, but 51% would go back and warn their younger selves.
Like how younger though? Wouldn't. How younger? Also, you totally made me cry when I saw that. I was like, why you gotta do me dirty like that, Emily? The amount of times you've made me cry before we even met, I was like, I'm not a pretty crier. At all.
I feel like I go back and forth. Like sometimes had I known the outcome of Colby, or had you known the outcome that you would be locked in for 4 years, would
Yeah.
you want to know right before then and know that you'll make it out, or would you not to know at all? Or I go back and forth, so there's no right answer. I think it depends
Yeah.
on the day and what I'm feeling. But
What
I'm
was
always curious of like other people have gone through trauma, if you would want to know, because I feel like sometimes I want to know and I want to go back and I like want to hug her, but other times I like long for my younger innocence
in a
and
sense?
like not knowing how like hard and traumatic life can be. So it's like I see why it was a close result, like
Dang.
51 and 49. I don't know. What do you think you would do?
I I feel like that was something that was a real turning point for me in therapy. I'm such a proponent of therapy and
I'm
how
team
like
therapy.
I'm all about it. And I'm also like, we work out every day. We need to like give our brains a good workout at least once a week. And I was against it for a very long time just because I didn't understand it. And I remember a breakthrough I had was my therapist. She was like, we were talking and we were talking about innocence being taken away, and I was 11, and I went through a lot of medical abuse. So like the doctors and nurses, when they think you're helpless and you're in this vegetative state, like they can, be physically abusive and emotionally abusive to you. And so I was very much this helpless, dying child who then you add insult to injury. So this innocence was taken away to such an extreme level that I hadn't really gone to her and told her, "Hey, you're okay." And she made me like go there and like almost hug her and just say, "Hey, it's okay. You're going to be okay. And I see you and I hear you, and you're not invisible. You're not." And so I feel like I would go to her because I kind of have, because I feel like when you go through trauma, it hardens you in a way that you forget. And let me know if you've gone through that, where you forget how to just be spontaneous. You forget how to just, and I've like learned how to do that later on, where like even the other day I was like, this is so spontaneous, and like I've like learned how to be silly and all these different things. But that was like something I learned almost later on in my 20s, was like where I learned how to be silly again. I learned how to laugh again and stuff. But like the demands and stress of my job and being in the public eye, almost there's like a pressure already. But then you throw in the internal struggles that you already are navigating and dealing with too. It's like a double whammy. And so with that, I remember having that moment, and she was like, "What would you want to say to her?" And so I had that like moment, and I remember being like, that like it's okay, you're gonna be okay. And so I think I would, but I think I would also go back to like 20-year-old Victoria and be like 10 years ago and just be like, take a breath. Like you don't have to hop on, level 20 on the treadmill and run yourself ragged, and you can ask for help, and you can take care of yourself, and don't be too stubborn to get help, and don't be too stubborn to ignore when you need help, or take care of yourself, or like stop and smell the roses along the way, or celebrate your accomplishments. Like there was such this race I was running where I was like, there's not even a race going on.
It's like you're trying to almost make up for the years you lost.
100%. Like I was doing that for so long, and it was this trauma response that I had to keep running, that I was going to run out of time. And none of us know how much time we have. So why are we going to waste embracing the time we do have, which is right here, right now? Like what a moment it is. I didn't know how to be present. I didn't know how to just embrace the conversation. Like I would be 50 steps ahead, but also 50 steps behind, but not actually having the conversation we're having now. Like what an awesome conversation and moment we're having right now. And so I would almost go back and be like shake myself a little bit and just say, hey, like calm the F down here.
Yeah.
Like this is not going to work, and you're going to run yourself to a point where you're going to look back and be like, did I even actually celebrate that? Did I even actually give myself a pat on the back? And I had a friend of mine say, when was the last time you celebrated something you achieved? And I really hadn't for a very long time.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember when Colby passed away, one of the things my therapist told me to do is celebrate the wins, big or
Yes.
small.
Huge.
So whether that was showering that day, like being able to get up and shower, whether that was eating, whether that was, being able to do an interview or do something for the memorial fund. And I still find myself, I feel like that was so instilled in me that even now I'll like do something and I'll be like, I forgot to celebrate that, or like, I need to like do that. Like, you think about it more. And like one of my favorite quotes now is, and I actually had a moment regarding the quote the other day, but it was like, what a privilege it is to grow old. Like, so many people think that, like, when you get older, obviously there's hardships in every stage of life. There is so many hardships and like what comes in different age groups. But what a privilege and accomplishment it is to go through every life stage and still be here today. Because you don't know when, like you're saying, life is so short, you don't know when your life will end. And that's like another thing that's just like, really resonated with me, and I'm sure you too, is what a privilege it is to grow old and appreciate, not let our trauma harden us, like you said, but really have like gratitude in the moment and be okay to let go. Like when you're talking about, laugh a little bit or like make at the jokes, like obviously we have very different stories, but similar in many sense too. And I remember like the first time I laughed after Colby died, and like those moments and how big and like important they are, and like they deserve to be celebrated.
Yes, because you deserve to be celebrated because you're still here. And what a blessing that is for the world, Emily.
I remember it's actually I think you did. I
did say
something
that
on your
I said that about you. I think I commented on one of your things about that.
I think you did.
Yeah,
I love it. I appreciate it.
I mean, here we are, so
it's
I've wanted to slide into your DMs for a very long time. I just didn't want to be weird.
Oh my gosh, no, you should have sooner.
But now I'm on your podcast, so
now we're gonna be FaceTime besties.
Here we are. Now we're FaceTime besties. Yeah.
You did another podcast, and I remember you were talking on it on the glimpse that I saw, and it was so important to me was when someone's stopping to ask someone like, how are you doing? And like actually taking that moment, because I feel like we talked a little bit about this, me and you separately, but especially in the public eye, and you're in front of cameras, and I was in front of cameras when Colby passed away. And I think there's a lot of pressure to perform at times, and it's not always this like highlight reel. I'm getting into it because like my hands are going. I'm like you. I'm like using my hands.
Let it happen.
But yeah, just the ability to look at someone and be like, how are you actually doing?
Yes.
I think is so important, because I also think with people with trauma, you can mask it a little bit too, or like you think you're doing so good because you're so much better from where you were.
And look how good it seems to everyone else.
Yes. I think that's like that's so important to do.
Yeah, and that's something I've been very intentional with, because I know I hid behind my smile for so long, and then I hid behind every accomplishment was just another mask, and there was always an assumption I was doing so well. And nobody knew how that couldn't be further from the truth. And I remember there was quite a few times where I just realized, I was like, people actually just have no idea or no clue, or like I was like, when was the last time someone actually asked? And so I think this last year, really having the breakthrough I had, where I just kind of found that joy again, and really understood it, where I was like, oh, I get it now. And I was like, this is what I've been missing out for so long. And because I think there was, I cheat death a handful of times. I come out of this devastating vegetative state. I learned to walk. I'm thrown in the public eye. I'm doing all these things. So I was always just going, doing, and essentially doing all these things I had to do, and then being thrown into all these things that there was never a chance for me to actually be like, well, how am I doing? What do I need? And so I had to take matters into my own hands, but I kind of had to. My health depended on it. And also, like, I couldn't keep pouring from an empty cup. And the more stages, the more opportunities I was getting, the more I was like, I don't know how much I've got left in my tank. And I remember my grandma before she passed, she was my best friend, and that really rocked me because she was really who could fill my cup and who could help me get through it. And then when she passed, it broke me. And so I hadn't had that level of grief, and I didn't know what to do. And so I was kind of in this space of searching, but then I was like, I need to figure this out once and for all. And I know, and one of the promises I made her was that I would take care of me. And she's like, you're taking care of everyone else, and you're going and doing all these things, and you're being this presence for everyone else, but I need you to show up for yourself. And that was a big moment for me. It took me a little while to do it, but I remember going through that. After I kind of came out of my own storm, I realized how many of us are also going through a storm, but wearing a mask of sunshine. And so I started getting super intentional with my friends, super intentional with my family, of being like, yeah, but how are you? And then if I got an inch, even if my friends were halfway across the country, I would send like a gift basket, or I would DoorDash stuff from CVS for them to go have a self-care night, or I would be FaceTiming them, I'd be checking in on them. Like, I started to recognize and be like, and then I started to hear that they were struggling. They were going through things, being like, you're the first person to ask me how I'm actually doing, or hold me accountable to the fact that I'm not doing well, or I'm really run down. And even at work, same thing. Like, sitting there and like someone is just being like, hey, how's it going? What can I do to help you? Or how can I make your job easier, and all this stuff. And I think, because we're all going through stuff. And I think that was something that I got radically focused on being intentional with, being like, check up on your people. Because you never know how just a simple gesture of saying, how are you doing, might just change someone's day, might save their day, might get them to get the help they need, might even just allow them a safe space to say, hey, I'm not doing so well.
I agree.
And that's where I'm kind of like, you got to check on your people.
Okay, I know you talked about how your favorite accomplishment was, or in your lifetime, your greatest accomplishment was blinking your eyes. Looking at some of the many other accomplishments that you've been able to experience, whether that's author, speaker, Dancing with the Stars, the foundation you have started, Forbes 30 under 30, there's a bunch of them. What do you have a favorite, or are they all just different in different ways? Gold medalist.
No.
See, there's so many.
No, they all mean. You just like jumped in on that one. They all mean a lot. I actually, the other day at the airport, I had like a Team USA hat, and someone was like, "So are you like a poser Olympian or like a legit one?" And it was like super late, and like, cause like the person like asked me that, and I was like, I'm like, when I had a lot of fun with this one. I was like, I just really love the sports stuff. And then like walked away, and they were like,
I hope they go on ESPN and then see you on ESPN and then Google your story after and be like, I put my foot in my mouth.
There's that one, I think, Indiana coach who's like, Google me. So I was like, but I literally was like, I'm too tired, but I wanted to have fun with it, where I just was like, I just really love the sports stuff. And then they were like, yeah, that's what I figured. And I was like, all right, cool. But anyways, I think all of them have like really cool meaning, and I'm like grateful for all of them. But honestly, starting Victoria's Victory Foundation is probably Chester.
Please hold.
Keeping my dog alive for years.
We're cheering for you right now, Chester.
Chester. My pup's asleep in the other room. He's chilling. Bring Chester! Bring Chester! My dog started to try to bark because he heard Chester.
Tell us more about the foundation, because I feel like that is obviously something super special.
Yeah, I think starting Victoria's Victory Foundation is something that I still can't wrap my head around. I really struggled with survivor's guilt when I came out of it, where I very much was like, why did I survive and other people don't? Why did I come out of this when other people don't? And I just didn't understand it. And I had trouble grasping, when you go through such traumatic ordeals, as you know, and then you come out of it and you have to kind of find a new normal, but nothing about your normal is normal. And so it's this really weird, I call it this really weird, double world you live in. And so I didn't understand it. And I've always been more comfortable with like service, like helping other people versus like myself. And so I think whenever I've struggled, I've always found that being in a service of helping someone else has always helped me and reminded me, hey, there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger world out there. And so I realized very quickly when I started walking, we started donating a lot of our equipment and a lot of different adaptive devices. And just a couple towns alone over from my hometown, there was a woman who hadn't been out of her bed in 4 years because her insurance company wouldn't pay for a wheelchair. And I very quickly went to my mom and I was like, we need to do something about this. And so we launched Victoria's Victory Foundation in 2017, and I was 22 at the time, and we had no idea what we were doing, but we were just like, hey, we want to do this. We got this incredible executive director. We're like, you can just help us with some paperwork. Like, we just want to help people. And I was like, I just want to save the world, give everyone wheelchairs, and having no idea the magnitude or what entailed with it. But my mom was always like, I can scholarship people to come to Project Walk, but we need to get people out of their houses. And it was a countrywide issue with how many people with mobility challenges and disabilities were just falling through the cracks with being denied quality of life care and services. And so I just was like, we have to do something about this. I was like, I don't know why I survived this, but there's a reason, and I have a promise to fulfill with God. And so it's been 7 years, and we've given almost $1 million in scholarships.
Wow.
Across the country, from 8 months old to I think 88 years old, recipients, we from all walks of life, all different types of disabilities, and we have a scholarship program. And so families and recipients will fill out the scholarship program. We have a scholarship committee, and those types of scholarships can range from nursing care, from home adaptations, car adaptations, from different types of adaptive equipment, wheelchairs, you name it, it's quality of life. So it's like everyone deserves that quality of life. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean you don't deserve the ability to have a quality of life and have the access to quality of life services, whatever that may be. And then we've expanded in the sense where we have resources, because they don't give you a manual when you have a disability. And so we have just this incredible team that has bought into that mission of, let's just give people hope. Let's be captains of hope, to allow people to say, hey, just because this has happened, we see you, we hear you, we want to help you, mind, body, and soul. Just give you the best chance and say your life doesn't end just because you have a disability. If anything, here are different ways where let's get you started, let's get you going, let's give you those wings to fly. And so our logo is our wings, and we always say that we're just giving you wings, and we want to help you fly. And so and it's not our official motto, but it's one of those things that in the wings we have pillars of different just support, where we have peer-to-peer mentoring, we have different resources, and then we have our scholarships. And it's been incredible. I mean, when we gave out our first round of scholarships and we got to see firsthand the recipients and the life-changing moments that it did for families and individuals, and then even now to this day, it's just, I remember leaning over to my mom and being like, okay, I understand why I lived. And even now, like, to see how many people have just been so generous, where people who maybe aren't necessarily directly affected, we're always like, we don't want you to need us, but we want you to know that we're there if like a loved one or someone needs us. And to just see how many people have gone out of their way to be a support and be there for our cause and what we do is really heartwarming, because I never in a million years imagined 7 years ago when we thought we were just going to be that little engine that we'd be able to help so many people and continue to do so, and continue to spread awareness and be advocates too, and what we've been able to do on just an advocacy level alone, and spread that awareness and just help people feel seen is really cool. So I think out of everything I've done, I've been really fortunate. I always say I'm making the most of this second chance I've been very, very, very fortunately given. That's the big one, because that one is giving other people another chance too, and allowing people to not be on the sidelines either.
I feel like we all thrive when we feel seen.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very important. That's
It's amazing
amazing.
how just one person being like, I see you, and like giving their hand out to them and saying, I got you, is what that can do for someone. And that's like what we try to do is say, hey, I got you, or we see you, or we want to help you. And like just that alone for someone, because there's so many people that just feel so alone and so isolated. It's amazing that that's just saying, hey, I see you.
No, I think that's so important. Especially when people just like get caught up in their everyday or not even. I was somewhere not that long ago, or it was this week kind of when I was talking about that quote, and there was this older man and he was pretty sick, and he kind of made a comment to me. I was sitting there too, and he was like, keep smiling. And I just like, I almost like broke into tears, because it was just like those comments, as cliche as they sound, like I feel like you never know when someone needs to hear them. And it just, the impact that you can have on someone's life is so special.
You never know words and just moments, what they can do for someone, good or bad.
Totally. Okay, you posted, this is my last question for you. You posted on the Dancing with the Stars dedication night. And it was your video talking about your story. Your parents were in it. I cried. I watched it again today. Cried again.
My lip quivered on national television, not intentionally, so we all were crying there. I wasn't proud of it.
It is incredible, and there's one line in it, and your dancing partner is asking you if you have been back in your chair, and you have this smile on your face, and you're like, I don't like to sit anymore when I can stand.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that is so powerful, and just shows like you don't take anything for granted. And just, that whole video, and just your parents like talking about you and you doing the dance and starting in the wheelchair and getting up. Like, I cried again today watching it.
That was wild. That was a wild experience.
Did that like trigger, do you think that triggered you, or, and then like,
I was actually against it at first. So our first dance, and Val's brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. So all the dancers choreograph and design all the dances and everything. They're brilliant, brilliant minds. After our first dance, so we watch the packages that you all see live. So we're standing in the ballroom while they're airing. So we have no idea what's coming on. So if you watch the very first dance, I'm watching the package that's kind of revealing me to the world for the first time. That one was more triggering, because I remember I was standing there and they showed the first sick footage of me, and I'm standing there, and Val's to my left, down like further down in the ballroom, and I'm standing there and I'm in this like pink fringy outfit, and he matched the pink fringy to exactly the color that my wheelchair was and my crutches were. So we were like already paying tribute to that pink. And I remember standing there. So this was like the beginning that ends up at this dance. So I'm standing there, and I remember having this out-of-body experience, because I see the hospital footage. And I remember going right there. And I like froze. And then all of a sudden I hear Arlen, Arlen. And I like immediately come back into my body, because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, what am I doing? And he comes up to me and he goes, let's go change the world. And he comes up to me and we start dancing. So that's kind of the beginning of it. And that became a dance that was like such a moment. And he started it off really slow, and then the beat drops and we take off. And if there's a video that one of my sister-in-laws took of my brothers watching it back home, and they're like, oh, this is fun. This is, where do they go? What is happening? Like, they just like didn't expect him, because no one knew what to expect. Everyone thought I was going to still be in a wheelchair. And because I was very private in my walking journey, and I was because I was still processing it. And I was always at a desk, or I was always sitting in a director's chair. So I was very kind of, no one knew what to expect, really. And so that was kind of the start of that. After that dance, he was like, we're bringing your wheelchair out. And I was like, no, we're not. And he's like, we're bringing your wheelchair out. I want to do a dance in your wheelchair. And I was like, no. And so so I lost that battle, and we shipped it out, and we brought it in. And it was really cool, because everyone there, so all those practice studios were all in one building. Everyone there, like, it was like this like really respected statue that was there, where everyone kind of took time to acknowledge this part of my journey that was there. All of the because you become a family, fellow dancers there. And then Val actually spent an afternoon sitting in my chair. to understand what my world was like. And he was like, this is really hard, and this is not like, my legs are my world, my legs are my everything, my livelihood. And so we kind of, he eased me back into it, because I hadn't sat in my chair since I started walking. I hadn't at all, like nothing. Like when I was up, I was up. I still have it. So it's at Project Walk with my mom. So she has it kind of right at the front in the room. And so I sat in it, and we kind of had this moment where I sat back into it, and he's like, but you can get back up. And so but he says, he's like, I want to do this for 2 reasons. He's like, this is a huge part of your life that is worth celebrating. And he's like, and I want to celebrate this, and I want to honor her. I want to honor this version of you. He's like, but I also want to honor the millions of others that are in chairs right now, to show them that they can dance too. And so it was kind of one of those things that it was actually very healing to have it there, and to like almost be like, hey, I love you. Like you got me through so much. And it was like celebrating you, of like, you took me all over the world. Like you were this beautiful part of my life, and we're going to celebrate you on Dancing with the Stars. And it was crazy when before the show started, they put it out on the ballroom, and there was just like a spotlight on it during dress rehearsals. And so everyone just like stood there, and like you could hear a pin drop, and everyone was just like, this is a moment. And so I walked out, and like I couldn't do it. Like I was already crying, and everyone just was silent as they brought the chair out, and there was just this spotlight on it, and you could hear a pin drop. And I'm standing there, and I wasn't even paying attention to the package. I was paying attention that I like was sitting back in this chair, and I'm like, but I survived. But I remember like sitting there and being like, and the whole time leading up to it, like Val's like, you lived, and we're celebrating that. But I was not prepared for my lip to quiver on national television. Like I was not prepared. But it was such this, like, I thought it was going to be so triggering, but it was so healing, because literally the next day we got sent and tagged in so many videos of individuals in chairs showing up to dance studios and dancing. And so it was like, that was like, do you see what we did? Like we showed people, like, it is your broken pieces are beautiful. And like what you think you're broken, you're not broken at all. And so it was like one of those things that it was a really cool moment. I mean, it was a tearjerker, and it was like but it was a thing where it was like, let's celebrate living and show people that is actually something to celebrate, not be sad about. And
or embarrassed.
Or embarrassed, yeah. Like it was like, I think that was the thing, is it's like your scars and your trauma, and that's what I respect so much about you, is like, it's what makes you beautiful. It's what makes you you, and it's what makes you the person that you are. And when you can celebrate that and be vulnerable and be real, and like when your lip can quiver on national television, it's real. And I think it's real, and it makes other people feel seen too.
Also, I feel like that ties in, like, even the title of this podcast, when I thought about what to do, like, you are more than the diagnoses that the doctor gave you. You are more than, and you are more than anyone's label, or what people label you, whether you're in a wheelchair, or whether it's mental health, or whether it's grief. Everyone has a story, and I feel like everyone's story deserves to be heard, but yours is beyond impressive and inspiring, and we're all so lucky to have you and follow your journey on social media through the highlight reels and the lows and everything like that, and bless our TVs with. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about football, and Colin played college football at Dartmouth. And he was like, you have to go to a college football game, because I guess they're like so insane.
Yeah, they're wild.
He says that they're so much fun. So I may need to like, I'll like ask him questions when like a game's on, and I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And he gets annoyed. So I mean, I just start asking you questions.
I got you.
Because he's like, just let me watch.
You can just watch the show too. We can break it down for you as well. But I got you. Just call me.
Because I learned that college football is different than NFL football. Like
very much so. Yeah, very, like it is a completely different everything.
Yeah.
I actually like college football better than the NFL.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's far better than the NFL. I don't watch the NFL.
If you had to pick a team, who would it be?
In the NFL?
College or NFL?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't get brought like I was brought up in the Northeast. Like you learn hockey at the age of 3. So like I didn't really get. No, I was in
Kobe's?
Atlanta. I was an Atlanta Thrashers fan growing up
Ooh.
because my dad coached a bunch of guys that played for. He was a goalie coach, so he coached a bunch of guys who played for all different teams. So we were always in the Bruins family section cheering for the opposite team for whomever his players were coming in. And so they all got to know us because like it was all of all of his goalies coming in. So like it was like Thrashers, Rangers, like you name it. So we never really had like an allegiance, but the Bruins were really kind and wonderful after London. I feel like I became like an honorary, but I'm kind of a universal hockey fan. But as far as like college football goes, I got to travel a couple years ago covering college football before I got my studio gig, and I went to an Oregon game.
I've heard they're
And the duck goes on a motorcycle. So I had no idea what to expect. And I was just like way in over my head. I had been trampled at Tennessee. So I was just like college football and I we were like a couple on the verge of divorce, right? Like we were just fighting bad. And I went to an Oregon game and the security guard just says, "Hey, you need to come with me." And I'm on the field and I was like, "I have my," he's like, "Yeah, you need to come with me." So he brings me near the tunnel. I'm like, what is happening? All of a sudden, I hear this engine rev. He puts me right in the front. This duck comes like whizzing past me. He like fist bumps me. And I'm like, what just happened? The security guy is laughing. He's like, "I could tell you were new here." And I was like, I love this duck. And then I had to do this thing after the game and the duck comes running over and just like puts his like beak over my head. I was like, I love this duck.
Does the duck have a name?
I don't know. I think it's the Oregon duck. I think it's the Oregon duck, but I should probably know that. But I just love the duck, and so I think like I'm an honorary just Oregon fan because of the duck, and like I get a lot of flack at work for that. But I was like, you tell me of another mascot that is getting on a motorcycle coming out of a tunnel,
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
and we'll have and they're also number 1 right now. So I'm like,
Good team to cheer for.
yeah. So that's where I'm going.
That's
So
that's why I'm gonna say my favorite team is too.
go the duck. Yeah, go Oregon. They're number 1. They probably have a better chance of staying number 1 right now.
Okay.
Or you could just throw a curveball and say like, I'll give you some fun curveballs to throw at Colin,
Okay.
and then you could have
Perfect.
a real fun. Oh yeah, I'll give you some. Actually, I will give you some facts that you could just like throw out at random moments, and then it'll just make it seem like you're like a complete expert.
I'm gonna say that I spent my whole time studying up on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Like wifey of the year right here. I got you.
I tried. Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you. I
much
appreciate you.
for chatting. I know you have a crazy, crazy busy schedule. So thank you. I appreciate you taking time
I appreciate
to
you
share
too.
your story, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
As you guys can see, why I told you that Victoria's story is so impressive and beyond inspiring. She not only gives me hope, but so many other people's hope, and it was an honor to have her on the podcast. Thank you again to everyone who has listened to this episode. I would love to read more of your reviews on upcoming episodes, so please leave a review or a rating. I'm looking forward to sharing more stories with you guys that are so incredible. Also, if you know someone out there and that you think that they would be an amazing guest on You Are More, please let us know, as we would love to help give people platforms to inspire others.